Hello, everybody. This is Joseph P. Farrell, and you've got it. It's Friday, July 22nd, 2011. It's time for news and views from the NEFARIUM. Uh, the announcement that I want to make is we are still looking into the conference, so please don't think that we've given up on that idea. We're looking at software, and that basically is what we're doing, and then we've got to invite the guests and everything. So we're setting a rough target date around September. So please give us some slack on that. But anyway, I haven't forgotten about you all and the conference idea. But anyway, what I want to talk about is something I'm going to be blogging about, I think, on Sunday. And that's good old Rupert Murdoch. Okay? Because I've been kind of watching this story. I'm sure a lot of you have. We have this headline: Masonic blackmail behind Rupert Murdoch scandal. Then we see this story about how Murdoch's News Corporation was hacking the cell phones of the 9/11 victims and their families beginning on 9/11. And here's another one: FBI to begin probe of News Corp 9/11 hacking allegations. And then we have reports of Murdoch's corporation hacking the cell phones of the royal family. Apparently, the royal family's lawyers are involved in this. So anyway, I wanted to comment about all that because obviously, I think we have something very major here. If News Corp was hacking the cell phones of the royal family, or even, came close to them, if it was hacking the cell phones of members of the British government, and additionally hacking the cell phones of the 9/11 victims and their families, there's two things going on. At the surface level, I think we're dealing with a company that is, like all corporations, arrogant in its view of itself as being above the law and above national governments. So this is the first thing. And I think probably News Corporation is the tip of the iceberg in these out of control corporations. It doesn't, pardon me, it doesn't take much to imagine that the banks themselves, particularly the major banks, the international banks, have their own counterintelligence and intelligence programs very similar to this. It would not surprise me at all. What I think has happened here is twofold, and I'm going to try and block this out a bit better in the blog on Sunday. But I think what we've got here is something twofold. I think that Murdoch and News Corp are now showing us yet another clue that there's some big time factional infighting going on within the so-called New World Order world rulers. All right, and I think that Murdoch is evident, particularly since he straddles the world between the Rockefeller interests in the United States and the Rothschild interests based in Europe. These two major components of what I'm calling the Anglo-American elite, Murdoch kind of straddles the fence between the two of them. So in other words, we have a real situation where I think that we're dealing with some factional infighting. Rupert Murdoch and News Corporation got too close to something. Now, what really concerns me here is this hacking of the 9/11 victims' phones and their families. I think this may be, basing this on pure speculation, I think this may be the real, or maybe one of the real reasons that they are now circling News Corporation and Rupert Murdoch like a school of sharks. Because stop and think, folks, what this possibly means. As most of you know, I'm an adherent to the idea that, at least in the case of the Twin Towers, we're looking at a very, very different explanation of what brought those towers down than the official jet fuel pancake theory or the demolition or nanothermite theories of the so-called 9/11 truthers movement. I am basically in agreement with the central premise of Dr. Judy Wood, who believes that at least as far as the Twin Towers are concerned, we are looking at, if you consider all the different kinds of evidence, we are looking at evidence of the possible use, deployment and use of a very sophisticated electromagnetic energy technology. In my opinion, it was probably scalar or torsion-based technology based on interference of microwave energies on the Twin Towers. And that brings up an important point, because in Dr. Wood's research, one of the categories of evidence that she looks at are what she calls the jumpers, the people hanging outside of the Twin Towers, literally hundreds of feet above the ground, taking off their clothes, some of them running and jumping out of the Twin Towers. Now, if Murdoch is tapping into the cell phones of the people in the towers, calling their families as this is going on, what we have potentially, and if he's keeping the transcripts of these things, what we have potentially is a class of evidence that could conceivably provide additional testimony or additional evidence to this microwave directed energy weapon scenario that was in use in Dr. Wood's opinion, and frankly, in my opinion, on 9/11. In other words, people that are being literally cooked by microwaves inside of an aluminum-cladded building like the Twin Towers are going to, if they're talking to family members, they're going to be stating things in their phone calls that do not fit the official story that will later come out. And I think once the word spread after this scandal broke that, yeah, Murdoch had all of this evidence in a corporate bunker in New York, and that some of it included 9/11, I think that's when you see the panic button being hit, because in these articles, one of the things that you'll note when I blog this on Sunday, one of the things that you'll note is that the FBI and the United States are now suddenly entering this picture big time and laying all sorts of subpoenas on News Corporation. They're going to spin this. But I think this is the center of, at least as far as the American government is concerned, the panic. Now let's go to Great Britain. We're looking at a panicked government there on the part of Prime Minister Cameron, but let's remember that News Corporation was doing this all the way back to Blair's government, Tony Blair's Labour government. So we have yet another panicked government that may have known the truth about 9/11, but nevertheless got involved in the big push into Iraq, all right? And this is significant because whose corporate media was pushing American and British intervention in Iraq the most? Well, it was Rupert Murdoch. So anyway, a lot to think about. Look for that blog. We do have the members only vid chat tonight, so I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there. So I'll see you on the flip side, everybody. God bless.